Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! This is a story that happened to me around 6 years ago. I applied for a job as a bar manager at a new resto bar that opened up in my area, Ontario, Canada. The owner of this bar had some issues with her liquor license being revoked at previous establishment, and there was some sort of stipulation this part I'm not clear on, where she was required to not be on site or involved in this business in any capacity for any reason. She was a prohibited person, and I believe she made her husband the owner on paper. But for this story, she is referred to as the owner. She was to hire a manager with 5+ years experience and a Smart Serve certificate to run and be responsible for the bar. All that in order to get another liquor license. After a short interview process, I was offered a job and was told of these terms. I accepted them despite the already apparent red flags. I was a very poor student. When the restaurant/bar opened, everything quickly fell apart. Despite the owner not being allowed to be on premises, she proceeded to micromanage both the kitchen and front of house. She stopped scheduling kitchen staff to save money and was working in the kitchen herself. Food quality plummeted. Customers became irate at how long of a wait it was, and word spread quickly in the small town. Eventually, a select few regulars became our only customers. More hours got cut, waitresses and kitchen staff were let go, the owner was now drinking at the bar, and at the same time was waitressing and cooking. This was all in a matter of a month. One night that month, it was exceptionally nice out, and we had a lot of boaters in the area. We had a pier near the bar where boats could dock and walk into the restaurant. A large group had walked in on this night, and they were both very clearly underage and very clearly over-intoxicated. I immediately cut them off, to which they made a very large stink about it. Enough that the owner's husband came over to ask what happened. I explained that I had cut the group off and wasn't going to serve them, to which the owner's husband decided to take their drink orders and serve them anyway. Obviously, money was tight, so they didn't care about the rules. The next day, the owner pulled me into the office and accused me of stealing $50 out of the till the night before. I knew this to be a lie that could be easily disproved because there is a camera located directly above the till that is synced to the time code on the POS. I was fired on the spot. I 100% believe this was because I was refusing to serve customers and thereby damaging their bottom line. I was really miffed to be accused of doing something I didn't do, and more upset that she used this lie she made up as an excuse to fire me. Because a stipulation of her having her liquor license was me working at the bar as a manager, I emailed the liquor control board when I got home and informed them of the rules being broken at the bar. A liquor inspector came to meet me later that week and took a statement. He then paid a surprise visit to the bar and was able to witness all of the things that I informed him about, including the owner both being on site and being involved in the business, serving minors and serving intoxicated persons. The liquor inspector slapped them with a very large fine, north of $50,000. Their liquor license was suspended, and the owner was too broke to pay the fine and was forced to close the restaurant. I received threats from her for a while after that, but the revenge was absolutely worth it. It was just another ordinary day, or at least that's what I thought. I woke up early, got dressed, and headed to my favorite coffee shop, like I do every morning. I was looking forward to my morning cup of coffee and a good book, but little did I know that this day would turn out to be anything but ordinary. I have spina bifida, a condition that I've had since birth. But it's never held me back. I've always been determined to live my life on my own terms, to not let my condition define me. I have a great job, a loving family, and a wonderful group of friends who support me in every way. So when I woke up that day, I had no idea that I was about to face an obstacle that would put my strength and determination to the test. As I wheeled myself up to the counter and waited patiently in line for my turn to order, as I waited, the woman, Karen, walked in and immediately cut in front of me, literally pushing my wheelchair out of the way without so much as a word or an apology. She literally pushed me out of the line and took my place. I was taken aback by Karen's rudeness, but I decided to not let it get to me. I smiled and said politely, "Excuse me," but I was next in line. Karen turned to me and sneered, "I don't have time for this. I need my coffee now." I, who was not one to back down, decided to speak up. "You know what? I don't have time for entitled people like you. You may have pushed me out of the line, but you won't push me around." Karen, who was taken aback by my assertiveness, tried to dismiss me by saying, "Oh please, you're just a cripple in a wheelchair. Who are you to talk to me like that?" I, who was not going to let Karen's words affect me, replied with a calm, strong voice, "I may have spina bifida, but that doesn't make me any less of a person than you are. I have worked hard to be where I am today, and I will not let someone like you take that away from me. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a coffee to order." The commotion in the coffee shop had not gone unnoticed by the cafe manager, who rushed out to see what was going on. He saw Karen pushing me out of the line and immediately stepped in, telling Karen off of her behavior. But Karen refused to leave despite being denied service. Just then the manager noticed his friend sitting at one of the tables, sipping his coffee. Clearly, he was an off-duty police officer, and the manager knew he could count on him for help. He signed to his friend, who quickly understood the situation and stepped in, telling Karen that she needed to leave the coffee shop right away or face the consequences. But before the officer could take action, I spoke up. "Please, I would like to press charges against her for physically pushing me out of the line earlier." The officer then prevented Karen from leaving and called for backup. He then took Karen in for questioning and later arrested her for physically assaulting me. From that day on, I, who had always been a strong and independent woman, became an even stronger advocate for people with disabilities, standing up for their rights and making sure that they were treated with respect and dignity they deserved. And the coffee shop manager, who had always been a supporter of me, made sure that the coffee shop was a safe and inclusive space for all customers. The context. When I was 4, my mother had just gotten with her new boyfriend. We will call him B. He seemed nice on the surface. He was an illegal immigrant that worked for a factory and lived in a ghetto apartment. But just under his exterior was a cruel, evil monster that I knew was going to harm my mother and I in some way or another. Soon after meeting B, my mother and him bought a house under my grandfather's name, since they both had poor credit and wanted me in a good school system. We moved in fast and got a little dog just before Christmas. We looked like a modern Hallmark family with a kid and a dog and a happy couple. That is until B's vibe changed. He started to look at me in ways that made me uncomfortable. I wanted to tell my mom, but she was a firm believer in the innocent until proven guilty idea, and I thought she wouldn't believe me. He started harassing me in ways I couldn't understand and hated. I was 6 at the time. When I was 8, we began learning what this kind of abuse was in households, and I put the pieces together quickly. I still thought that my mother wouldn't believe me though, and I grew numb to the habitual abuse. When I was 9, Mom got pregnant with my sister. I was nervous and cried every night knowing that she wouldn't be safe from this horrible, gnarly jerk that my mother called her boyfriend. He refused to pick up extra hours at work when money got tight, so my mom picked up a second job whilst pregnant and he stayed home to watch me. Things got only worse. Then the physical abuse and extreme mental stress on my mother started around the 4th month. We lost my sister on Christmas Eve 2009 to a placenta abruption brought on by stress. I'll never forget the sight of my mother in her dark hospital room, sitting in her rocking chair, empty, lost and numb. He turned to me to let his frustration out. Mom was blissfully unaware as her daughter went into a downward spiral at the age of 11 and developed a phobia of boys even looking at her the wrong way. I made friends with all the weird kids at school. Got my hair dressed in all black, started picking fights, got bullied for never speaking to anyone outside my tiny circle, and resented her and her precious P. She loved him despite all the abuse, or more so, she was scared to leave him for fear of what he might do to her. If only she knew how the stuff he did to her daughter. In 2012, mom got pregnant again. On October 22, 2012, my brother was born. From the videos I've been introduced to by B, I knew my brother wasn't going to be safe either. I became fiercely protective of my mother and brother. At the age of 12, I carried around heavy objects and hid them in my room in case he ever tried anything. Sadly, I was a 100-pound girl with the upper body strength of a toddler, and he was a fully grown man that could easily hurdle me across the state. He also had a zero-tolerance policy with my brother for the sole fact that he was a boy. My brother was born premature and would need the extra help to catch up. This did not stop his father from beating him when he cried, yelling at him when he played with his toys, and reprimanded him for using his left hand more than his right. He was only 2. And don't even get me started on when my brother played with a dog. The dog Jay was starting to come of age. She was crotchety and didn't like having her hair, ears, or tail pulled. Brother did this by accident one time, and this led to him getting the beating of a lifetime that left him almost mentally R-worded. Had it persist. Ironic too, because B didn't even like the dog. At this point, he was just looking for excuses to control and beat us whenever he would. Behind the scenes, he also manipulated and threatened my mother. He had control of the bank accounts, health insurance, social security information, all sorts of paper that he could do with what he pleased. Mom, brother, and I were puppets on strings in this sick household. Then there was that sunny summer day. They had gotten into a fight over who even remembers now, and I hear my door slams and lock. I'm taking this kid with me back to Portugal, and you can't do anything about it, you stupid witch. Oh no, not on my watch. In hysterics, I called the police and alerted them that my mom's now husband was trying to kidnap my brother. Said he was going to bring him back to Portugal and that we would never see him again. They came in an instant and I jumped out the window to meet with them. My mother, grandmother, and brother had already been pulled from the house. Mom was still in hysterics, clutching her baby. I told the cops my side of things despite my mother pleading for me to shut up and that everything was fine. Things clearly weren't fine, but when the police took B's testimony, he simply pleaded that he was just trying to take Brandon for a walk. B was left off with a warning. I couldn't take it anymore. This is where the fun begins. When I was 14, I had a breakdown in front of my mom and told her everything, and I mean everything. She called him and told him what I told her. He came home immediately and I could see the fire in her eyes. Sadly, he had more control over her than I thought, for she took his side by brute force and I was silenced. However, now I had the upper hand. I had used my voice to speak, and I could use it again. He became more complacent with me, but not towards my mother and brother. Nonetheless, I used this to my advantage. With age, I learned how to channel the silver tongue that my birth dad had gifted me with. I told my mother as subtly as possible to watch her husband, for he could molest brother the same way he did to me. Or even better, he could forget about his family entirely and run off with another woman. Anything went with B. She slowly fell under my word, and the traps laid themselves out without me even having to lift a finger. When I was 17, B began a new habit of going to the gym. In his work clothes, I'm sure you could already see where this was going. Mother swore to me that after my senior year she would be divorcing this jerk. However, I influenced her to keep her eyes open and her peripheral vision even more open. This is how she found the odd charges on her bank statements to numerous bars and hotels for hundreds of dollars. She noticed one singular pattern in the paper bank statements that were sent to us every month. Usually B would rip them up right in front of her and tell her not to look at them. But this time she got her hands on a duplicate that had been sent to us on request. A hotel near where B worked, along with a bar that was located close to the hotel. He was too full of himself to take her to a hotel, even saying that he wouldn't want to waste a single week of his life in a cramped hotel room with his witch of a wife. Using the hotel's name, my mother looked it up and began her detective work. She called him one day whilst at work. Hi, is this X Hotel? Yes, how can I help you? I just wanted to confirm my reservation. It's under B. One moment, please. Alright, yes, you have reservations for the deluxe suite for June X to June X. Anything else I can help you with? Nothing at all, thank you. She was seizing with pure, unadulterated rage. Turns out, he was cheating on her with a husband and wife that he worked with. She left work early to get me and brother from our grandparents' house, and she told me everything in hushed tones so that my brother couldn't hear. I told her that I told her so, and that she did the right thing. That day, we packed up our stuff and said goodbye to the haunted house that we'd lived in for so long. The perfectly manicured lawn and driveway, the white picket fence, and the beautiful shrubs were going to be a huge hit on the housing market. He tried to hunt us down that day, but we hid out at a church that was far from the town that we had just resided in for 13 years of our lives. That summer we lived with Grandma and Grandpa. That was the happiest and most free we'd all ever felt. Too bad Jay wasn't there to see it all, since we had been forced to put her down due to a severe heart murmur. But trucking her ashes around was enough for me. That same year in October, we moved into a new house in the boondocks of my mother's old town and made it our way. He was left homeless, drinking himself to death because he had lost everything. His family, his wealth that poured in from my mother's significantly greater paycheck, the house, the luxury cars, the picture-perfect family that he kept on tight strings for far too long. He now resides with his second mistress, since none of his family or friends wanted to take his dog in. He lives in constant fear too, because he knows what I did and he knows what he did. He knows that I can get him deported any day of the week, so he treads on eggshells and is as compliant with me as possible. I wish I could say the same with my mother, but I am not afraid. I know where he lives, and since I've gotten back in contact with my father, he had been locked up for those 13 years due to evading child support and drug dealing. I've learned how to be the one with a leash. No more cowering in fear, thinking that one night he could go on a rampage and kill us all. No more long nights of staying awake to make sure he didn't go into brother's room to have his way with him. No more calling the police, manipulating, begging, and pleading with my mother to do the right thing. I have him on a short leash, and any day now I can turn out the real dogs on him. My own pent-up rage in ICE. Don't get me wrong, I'm actually quite angry with my mother for more recent things she's been doing. However, I'll give credit where it's due. I am so proud of her for taking action after 13 years of being imprisoned by the man she was forced to call her husband. So a little bit of backstory. We live in a 2-story building, and on the first floor there is a doctor and beauty salons. The second floor are all flats, and we live in the one at the very end of a corridor. On to the story. This happened 10 minutes ago, and I'm still baffled how someone could mistake my flat for a beauty salon. I'm currently on maternity leave with my second child, 6 months, so I'm home most of the time. I was breastfeeding her and heard footsteps but wasn't thinking much of it as my husband is also at home. But suddenly, an elderly lady stood in our living room and just asked, "Beauty salon?" To say I was confused is an understatement. To get where she was, she passed my sleeping son in his stroller and a complete row of bookshelves as well as a few toys on the floor. So, in my opinion, there is no way that you can confuse our flat or anything else. But the lady looked confused herself, and after I explained that she needed to go a floor down, she apologized and made her way out of the flat but tried to open 2 other doors before finding the right one. By this time, my 2 kids were crying, so I didn't go after her. But now, I'm wondering if I should have, as she seemed pretty confused to me. This is the second time this happened, and I get that it's possible to press a wrong button in an elevator, but normally it isn't hard to differentiate between a beauty salon and a flat door. Edit. For all the people that say I should lock the door, I normally do. But my son was sleeping in the stroller outside of the apartment, so I had it open so I could hear him when he woke up. This isn't that uncommon here, and it isn't unsafe as we live in a small village, and there are not many people around. Edit 2. So to everyone who was shocked I left my kid outside my apartment in his stroller, we normally do not do that. He just happened to fall asleep while my husband was grocery shopping, and if we would have moved him, he surely would have woken up. Our stroller is big, so it isn't easy to maneuver it in our flat without bumping into things and waking him up as well. It also was cooler outside of the flat, and I had the door open and checked on him frequently. Sure, kids can get kidnapped in all countries, but we are a village of 4,000 people who's a tight-knit community, and I don't know of a single case of child kidnapping that happened here. The staircase and both exits also have surveillance cameras, and people know that as there are signs and they are visible. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.